This is The Scoop for Thursday.
I'm Lisa Marzilli with the WMNF News headlines. A three-judge federal panel has rejected a constitutional challenge to a congressional redistricting plan that Governor DeSantis pushed through the legislature in 2022, saying opponents did not prove lawmakers acted with racially discriminatory purpose. Yesterday's decision was the second time in less than 4 months that courts have upheld the map in cases focused on the overhaul of North Florida's District 5 that resulted in the ouster of Black Democratic Representative Al Lawson. The Florida Supreme Court has agreed to hear an appeal by voting rights groups, though it has not scheduled arguments. As a result, the 2022 congressional map will remain in place for this year's elections. Florida is only one of 10 states that has not expanded access to Medicaid. WMNF's Chris Young reports Tampa city leaders and activists gathered across from Tampa General Hospital yesterday to call for an expansion of coverage.
Political leaders and advocates gathered across from Tampa General Hospital to speak out for Medicaid expansion. The event was organized by Florida Voices for Health. U.S. Representative Kathy Castor criticized the state's inaction.
What they're doing in blocking Medicaid expansion is fiscally irresponsible. It's morally wrong. It is a betrayal, and it's time now for Floridians to rise up and fight for Medicaid expansion, fight for your neighbors, and get this done.
Over 500,000 Floridians are in a coverage gap without options for health care. Many earn too much to qualify for Medicaid, but too little to qualify for tax credits in the ACA marketplace. Dr. Mona Mongit practices in St. Petersburg. She says she's seen the effects of a lack of coverage firsthand.
For Floridians who ignore chest pain, shortness of breath, they don't take care of their diabetes, they ignore their mental health challenges because they don't have health care coverage, this Medicaid expansion is like a lifeline.
The group Florida Decides Healthcare announced a campaign to put healthcare expansion on the 2026 ballot. The group will need to first get nearly 1 million validated petitions from Florida voters throughout the state. Hillsborough County Commissioner Pat Kemp made her stance on the issue clear.
Our $5 billion that we're all paying into the federal system, that's going to every other state to make sure that their citizens, their neighbors, are not treated cruelly. They're made sure that they have access to health care. We have got to do that in Florida.
Senate President Kathleen Passidomo said in January that Medicaid expansion was, quote, not going to happen in Florida. For WMNF News, I'm Chris Young in Tampa.
Clearwater is conducting a vulnerability assessment to understand how climate change will affect the city in the coming years. WMNF's Carolyn Kwiatkowski reports it involves creating a digital twin of the city to test how things like flooding and extreme heat might impact the community.
The project is funded by the state of Florida's Resilience Florida grant program and predicts significant impacts on Clearwater from climate change. Rainstorms could get 24% heavier, seas could rise by 3 feet, and there could be a 300% increase in really hot days by 2100. The vulnerability assessment was led by Atkins Rails. Project manager Chris Zambito said the city should use the information to plan mitigation strategies where they are needed most.
Let's put a lens just in those areas and see if we had X amount of money. Should we elevate roads? Should we do some kind of floodproofing or raise buildings? It's trying to help focus, where maybe to put those efforts, or at least, maybe it's another study, or maybe it's more detailed information. It probably gets needed before you get to implementation, because, it is a planning level tool, but it tries to emulate those things as best as possible.
Clearwater plans on leveraging federal grants to secure additional funding. This vulnerability assessment is the first steps in accessing these grants. For WMNF News, I'm Carrie Lynn Kwiatkowski.
In weather, after some lingering showers this morning, it'll be partly sunny and breezy with a high of 75. Lows tonight will be in the mid-50s, sunny with a high of 77 on Friday. I'm Lisa Marzilli with the WMNF News headlines.
This is The Scoop, recorded at WMNF Tampa.